The Nightmare on Elm Street franchise had so many great moments, so many memorable moments, and also some scares peppered throughout. But today, I want to talk about my most memorable moments, and I'm going to start with a special one from a really special movie in the franchise that, let's just say, as a kid, really sparked my imagination. Let's go. Let's get down to brass tacks. Hey, what's going on, guys? We're going to be talking about favorite moments in the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. And today I'm going to be talking about a particular one that immediately jumped out in my mind. Join me down in the comments. Let me know what your favorite moment is, or scene, or death, or what have you. And we'll start talking about it as a community. But to not delay this any further, the movie that came to my mind was not the original. No, it was A Nightmare on Elm Street 3 Dream Warriors. And of course, I know you guys know what I'm going to talk about. I'm talking about the scene with Joey and Nurse Marcy. Yes, yes, yes. This scene, as a kid, blew my mind away for obvious reasons, but I want to get a little bit deeper than that, no pun intended. So, in Nightmare on Elm Street 3 Dream Warriors, Freddy has shown such an immense amount of power. And not only that, but also he's so devious, man. I mean, he's really hitting you in the feels, if you know what I mean. And in this particular scene that I'm going to be talking about, it's already foreshadowed way beyond, because when we meet the Dream Warriors, the other kids that Kristen meets during the events of the film early on, we meet Joey, who's mute, played by Rodney Eastman, by the way, and he is very shy, very awkward, and so forth. And hey, man, he's got his eyes on one of the nurses there. Okay, it's Nurse Marcy. I mean, I'm not gonna blame the guy, right? Would you? And she's the type of nurse, from what we can tell, seems to be a really nice person, nice to the kids there. Because again, they're taking care of these kids. These kids are troubled youths that have had a lot of problems, and some pretty severe problems and addictions. So Nurse Marcy is really, really cool, seems to be a kind person, maybe a little flirty, but hey, that's par for the course. And Joey, of course, you can tell that he likes her. Now, as the story goes on and we start to see how Freddy is going to attack all of the Dream Warriors, these kids, in specific personal ways, how could we have ever known what was going to happen in this particular scene? There was no way to know it. You guys got to remember, this is 1987. I was a kid. I was like 10 years old. I had no idea what I was about to see. And boy, did we see it. So Freddy has shown that not only does he want to kill you in your dreams, in your nightmares, but he wants to do it in a way where it's almost like humiliating you. He's almost mocking you, almost poking at you and your deepest, darkest secrets and your vulnerabilities, right? And so for Joey, of course, it's this whole idea of his sexual repression and his desires for this nurse who he probably feels like he would never have a chance with, right? I mean, she's older than him too. That's the other part about it. So look, the scene starts off where he sees her, and it's kind of like, okay, you didn't know it was a nightmare first. Remember, think about this as the first time you've seen it. And if you haven't seen A Nightmare on Elm Street 3 Dream Warriors, what are you doing?
And you blew it! You blew it!
You've got to see it. After they go under hypnosis to try to figure out their dream powers to fight Freddy, well, Joey sees Nurse Marcy in the hallway, and she gives him that come hither look, and he follows her down to the hall. She goes into a room. He decides to go in there as well. I'm thinking, what the heck is going to happen at this point, right? I don't know what's going to happen. So as she leads him into the room, basically saying, hey, can I talk to you for a minute? And what makes this scene even more despicable in a sense is the fact that when she's talking to Joey, she seems really sincere. Stacey Alden really did a good job with these lines, because I had no idea what was going to happen. She talked about how she thought Joey was really nice kid, he was cute. She makes up excuses to find ways to talk to him and all this type of stuff. And next thing you know, bam, it's time to take the outfit off. And whoa, I mean, seriously, guys, it was the 80s, bro. That's all I can say. And I mean, what a scene. I mean, when you talk about nudity in horror movies, especially in the 80s, I mean, it was rampant. But this was done in a way, and I mean it, I really do mean it. It was done in a way that was still tasteful. Stacey Alden herself talked about what it was like shooting that scene, how she had to go there and basically strip, and it was kind of uncomfortable, but she was able to do it, and everyone on set was professional, and she made it through the scene.
The most time interviewing and auditioning was the nurse who has to bare her breasts.
I had to go in and strip, which, you know, isn't easy, but that was the process. It was a little out of the norm.
Rodney Eastman had talked about,
I've had guys tell me watching that scene was the first thing that really got me interested in girls, and you've changed my life.
it's really interesting to hear that because I know exactly what they mean. It was like, wow, you're seeing this, you can't even believe it. Stacey Alden herself found it very flattering to hear those types of things. And
That's very flattering, and wow, that's amazing.
it's just crazy to even think that never crossed her mind. Maybe it did, maybe it didn't. But if you guys have never seen Never Sleep Again, the Nightmare on Elm Street documentary, you should really check it out. It talks a little bit about this particular scene.
She would have to stand there naked and stuff, the lighting and stuff like that. It was a pleasure.
Here she is with Joey, halfway naked, or I should say pretty much naked. All she's in is a thong, basically. And she's kissing him, and you're like, wow, what's going on? Because you don't know what's going to happen next. And then all of a sudden you have that moment where you hear that music kick in, and she makes this face, and next thing you know, she's pulling away, and there's this tongue that's trapped between both of them. And it's like, what the heck? You're turning my dream into a nightmare, literally.
And you blew it! You blew it.
And then, of course, the scene where she's spitting the tongues out at Joey so that his arms and his feet are tied to the bed. It's an absolute nightmare. And I'm sure for this character, it was too. And his poor Joey is there, basically tied to the bed. Next thing you know, you hear Nurse Marcy start to laugh, and it actually did sound like Stacey Alden's voice, and then it just kind of morphs into Freddy's laugh, and it's so demonic, it's so horrible. And as they pan around her body, and you're like, oh, come on, let's just stay on this nurse. Next thing you know, Freddy stands up. It's Robert Englund, and you realize this was just totally a nightmare. Messed it all up for Joey, messed it all up for us too, whatever. But you gotta love Robert, because then he's like, what's wrong, Joey? Feeling tongue-tied? And all of a sudden the bed drops out from underneath Joey. And it's like friggin' all this hellfire. It's like hell or whatever, a fiery pit. And it's like, oh shit, this kid is in some bad trouble, man. It's absolutely a wonderful nightmare. It has so many cool elements. And obviously with such a beautiful woman like Stacey Alden, that's great. But I think what was best about it is that they gave us that part of it and got us all sucked into the moment because of a beautiful woman that's bearing her breast. And then all of a sudden, it's Freddy Krueger. It's Freddy being despicable, hitting you right in the feels. And that was a really cool moment for A Nightmare on Elm Street, the franchise, because now Freddy was doing these things that really got deep into the victim's psyche. Now, originally, they were going to have Freddy appear as just a Freddy head on top of Stacey's body, like still with her chest exposed.
It didn't quite go.
Again, this is one of those points that no one can play Robert like Robert. And it just looked like a girl with a Freddy face on.
And it looks horrendous. My God, I'm so glad they didn't go with that. They thought the same thing. It just looked way too weird having Robert talking, and then you've got whether it was the fake chest or if it was Stacy with a mold of Robert on her, whatever it was, it didn't look good. And I'm glad we didn't see that, because I think it also would have taken us out of that moment for the nightmare. The way they did it is pretty much perfect. I can't think of anything else that would have been any better. It was a great effect also for Rodney Eastman being tied to the bed, and he was basically in a crucifix position. He actually was very, very uncomfortable for him, because he had to be in that position for hours. So again, this nightmare was fantastic, and it's one of my most memorable moments from the franchise. Again, watching this franchise beginning out as a kid, a young kid, this was a moment that always stood out in my mind. But it also showed me how these nightmares could be so horrendous and so personal.
What's wrong, Joey? Feeling tongue-tied?
And again, it showed why Freddy Krueger, amongst all of the horror icons, had that extra little thing that really made him stand out. And it was so creative and imaginative. He could literally kill you in almost any way he'd want, anything that was happening in your mind. And we saw that throughout the franchise. So anyways, there's one of my most memorable moments from the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise, and it's from Dream Warriors. Who would have guessed? But anyways, for you guys, let me know what some of your favorite moments and memories are from the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. Put them down in the comment section down below. Join us, be a part of this community as we continue talking about all these wonderful moments in movies. And I'll catch you guys next time in the Night Watch Zone, a place where you'll never love and talk about movies the same. If you're watching this, if you're listening to this, you are the Night Watch. Peace.